This program is brought to you by Emory University.
Gatsby. He had a grand vision for his life since he was a boy.
I'm gonna fix things just the way they were before.
Just you and me. No amount of fire could challenge the fairy tale he had stored up in his heart. Gatsby.
The question that everybody is interested in is, who is this Gatsby fella? Who is the millionaire playboy next door? Before there was Keeping Up with the Kardashians, before there's What Would Ryan Lochte Do, there's The Great Gatsby. And who is this Gatsby guy? And so we have a sort of natural attraction to wealth, power, youth, beauty, and so that's what draws a lot of people next door to the lavish parties that Gatsby throws. But to really understand who Jay Gatsby is, I think it's important to think about two primary emotions, one being shame and the other being grief. The shame part of Gatsby is that he's a boy from a small town in North Dakota. He talks about, at some point in the middle of the novel, we learn that he's ashamed of his lower class upbringing. His parents were sort of shiftless farm workers, not very successful. And Gatsby is described as a self-made man. From this shame, he starts to create a persona. He changes his name, he leaves his house for the army, and creates a persona of himself molded as a reaction against the shame. And it's important to sort of see the difference between the emotions of shame versus guilt. Guilt is a feeling that people feel when they feel they've done something wrong, some kind of action, they've broken some kind of moral rule or law that might get them in trouble. Shame is something more fundamental. It's a feeling about the self, a feeling that something about the self is wrong or damaged. And to understand Gatsby, you have to see the ways he reacts against that shame of those lower class upbringings. And he does it in this exaggerated, lavish displays of wealth and ostentation. When he first meets Daisy, he doesn't feel that he's going to be good enough or make enough of a living to support her or to woo her away for the marriage. And so that kind of explains the drive between these lavish displays of wealth. It's what psychologists would call a reaction formation against that shame of being poor. When it comes to feelings of shame, there's something about yourself that's fundamental, that you worry about what people are going to see or think of you or how they will react to you. I think that's why eyes become a powerful symbol in The Great Gatsby. It's this notion of who is watching, who is looking out over, who is seeing you, not for the actions that you do, because the characters are relatively without guilt about their actions, but they are very afraid of being seen and the negative things about them being seen. Another primary emotion that's important to understand with him is that of grief. You would look at Gatsby as showing a sort of complicated grief reaction about his loss of Daisy and their engagement. That when he went off to the war, she left him. They'd met briefly before he deployed, and he didn't come back in time and she left him. And what happens in distorted grief reactions is time sort of stops, or people try to recapture lost time. And it's something that's talked about very heavily in the novel. It's why it's such an important theme is time stopping, trying to get back to a certain time. Gatsby is really trying to reclaim that lost era. In fact, there's a scene when he meets Daisy for the first time after so many years that he almost knocks a clock over on the mantle. It's almost as if he wants time to stop, back to that time when he was 17 when they met. So with distorted grief reactions, you see people who are stuck. They can't move forward in their lives. They obsess or ruminate and become depressed and really try and recapture something that was lost. And as part of that, there's an idealization that goes with it. an idealization of Daisy and who she was, and an inability to see her flaws or the flaws in their relationship. And so he's stuck on this ideal image, that green light floating across the dock that he's looking out for and reaching towards. But the more he tries to get back to that time, the more he can't recapture it. He can't rebuild the life that once was. And so he's stuck not being able to go back to the past and recreate that life, but stuck not being able to move forward either. And that's where his great tragedy comes in.